Good morning and welcome to this week's vlog. It's Saturday morning. I finally finished my work trip, which had me away from home for a week after a week on holiday. So the plot has got a little bit overgrown. So the plan for this weekend basically is to get on top of the weeding and tidy everything up. I've already made a start on this bed. I've taken out all the cornflower and calendula, but as you can see, the sweet corn is a mess. Where the potatoes are, it's all started to grow over. Carrots, strawberries, chard in here. It's not going to take a huge amount of time, maybe a couple of hours just to get on top of it and get everything looking it should do. I can barely even get in the fruit cage. It's that bad, but there's raspberries coming through, so I'm happy with that. I've got a couple of cabbages and a kale, so I'm going to tidy up in there as best I can. I started to chop down a few of the summer fruiting raspberries, the canes that were starting to die off. I'll leave anything that's new, and then the plan is in the autumn to transplant them and move them over the other side. So I've got summer fruit in one side, autumn fruit in the other, but that's a little way off yet. Yeah, so that's the plan. I've also got a new plot neighbour. It's a guy that I work with, so hopefully I shouldn't have to keep fighting off the brambles from getting into my cage. He came down this morning, had a look over. He's quite excited to get going, so I'm sure he'll be popping down this afternoon and get this plot into shape. Good morning. It's a glorious morning today. It's Sunday, and the plan today is finish off the weeding, and I'm going to take up the first 3 rows of the main crop potatoes, which are King Edwards. And then once that's done, I'm going to do some in-bed composting on that bed. So everything that I dig up from now on, I'm just going to put one of the Daleks on the corner of the plot, and then over the winter that can all rot down, and then I'll spread it out in the spring ready for planting, and I'm going to use this bed next year for the pumpkins. So that's the plan for today, and I'll get on with it now. So what I did with these was I put 1 potato in each bucket and just topped it up with a mixture of soil and compost, put nothing else in, but I'll let the roots from the potatoes grow into the soil to take up all the nutrients and moisture from the soil. So just have a look, see what we've got in here. I'm surprised if there's anything, but well, that surprised me. Quite a lot of potatoes in there. Just considering I put 1 seed potato in and I've just left it, I've done absolutely nothing to it for the rest of its growing time, and to get that many out is pretty good. So I'll do the other 3 buckets and see what we get. Quite happy with that. I've got a fair few, obviously some in more on that one. I don't know what happened with that one, but the rest of them, there's slightly less potatoes in there, but they're bigger. That's probably the largest in terms of weight. but for 4 potatoes, just put in buckets and left, that's a pretty good return, I'd say. Obviously there's not as much as there is in there, and that was 5 or 6, so I think in the ground is still definitely the best option. But that's certainly I think it's quite a good harvest. Right, I shall get on and dig this section over now and see what's in there. So that's today's potato harvest. They're there's a bit of scab on them, but that's going to peel off, so they'll be perfectly good to eat. I'm not too worried about that. That's this area done, where the potatoes were. I've dug out the 2 rows of potatoes, obviously left the rhubarb in, and there's a few cucumbers on that, so I've just put it onto the arch, hopefully it'll grow up. And I've moved the compost bin, and what I've done is I've put a layer of green waste, a layer of the horse manure, a layer of green waste, horse manure. I managed to fill it to the top, and but that will rot down in a few days, and I've started a second compost heap that I'm going to put into that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through the greenhouse, because some of the tomatoes are starting to split and go past ripe, so I'm going to take out as many of them as I can, create a little bit more room in there for whatever's left to ripen off. A lot of these plants are just starting to die off. These are the determinate Roma, so once they've all ripened off they won't produce any more fruit, they'll just die off. These are indigo blueberries, are just getting going, and as you can see there, some of the tomatoes are starting to spoil, so I'm going to take out everything I can on this side, and as many of those as are ready to go. Just give it a little bit more light and air inside. Luckily I've had no blight or anything, so I've got to be thankful for that. To get as many tomatoes as I have, I've probably had at least 10 kg, £22 of tomatoes so far, and there's still more to go, and there's more in the polytunnel, but they don't seem to be ripening off quite as quick in the polytunnel, which is good really, because it gives you sort of a succession. As you can see, the sun is beating down. It's really warm today, but I'm not going to complain, having had a miserable summer, and we're having a nice autumn, so I'm going to get the tomatoes sorted and get back to you when I'm done. That's what I've managed to get out the left hand side of the greenhouse. So taking all the plants down, taking the canes out, just weeded it over, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move the peppers from the polytunnel and drop them in here, just so they've got a little bit more room. It makes it a bit easier to move around inside the polytunnel. So I should get that done now, and then I'm going to call it a day. I've popped the slabs back in that I took out to expose the beds, so it gives me a nice level ground for the chillies. And in that corner I've just put in one of the plastic trays, because I can't find the slab at the moment. I'll have a look next week. Yeah, so I've just got to get the chillies in. I couldn't get all the chilli plants in there, but I've got in as many as I can, so I'm just going to give them all a good watering and settle them in. But it's made it a lot easier to get in and out the polytunnel now. So once I've watered everything, I'm going to head off home. Just checked the compost, and we are up to 75 degrees. I shall find out what that is in Fahrenheit, but either way around it's very hot, so hopefully that'll be killing off all the weed seeds and we should have a good product at the end of the day. This is a compost heap I've just created, and as you can see it's sitting at around about 32 degrees, so I shall check that back in a day or two, and hopefully we'll be into the active or even the hot range, because it soon heats up with that horse manure. So thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again soon. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I shall see you again next week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.